and welcome to another edition of Colorado Outspoken. I'm Stephen Montez. On tonight's show, we'll be taking a look at a women's entertainment festival. We'll be taking you along on this year's AIDS Walk and the first ever AIDS Run. And we'll be attending the 10th anniversary of a Denver organization making a real difference in the lives of some people living with HIV and AIDS. And there's more. The November elections are just around the corner, and there are a number of issues and races that affect the LGBT community. Tonight, we'll be talking about two ballot measures that affect equal marriage, equal rights, and we'll be taking a look at races and candidates that will be important to us. That's a lot of stuff to pack into one show, so we better get started. Here's Tom Biddle to fill us in on equal rights and the marriage amendment.
The year was 1992, and the big story in Colorado's GLBT community was a proposed amendment to the state constitution that would prohibit individuals from suing any city or municipality for discrimination based on sexual orientation. Amendment 2 became a lightning rod for gay rights advocates and their opponents, and words like Colorado for Family Values, Colorado Legal Initiatives Project, and hate state entered the lexicon. Flash forward now 14 years, and gay and lesbian issues of great importance to both conservative and progressive voters are once again making the headlines. With me tonight are two very knowledgeable people in the area of Colorado politics. Adam Crowley is a native of Grand Junction, Colorado, who has worked on political campaigns and with organizations across the country. Most recently, Adam was on staff with Jeff Cook for Congress in Westchester, New York. He returned to his home state in May and joined Coloradans for Fairness as the statewide outreach director. Pat Stedman is an attorney and partner in the Denver-based lobbying firm of Mendez, Stedman and Associates. He represents the LGBT lobbying group Equal Rights Colorado. He helped write Referendum I and lobbied for it to appear on the November ballot. Welcome to both of you to Colorado Outspoken.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Great to have you guys here. You know, the issue of domestic partnership within Colorado, and specifically the ballot initiative Referendum I, has really come to the public consciousness through a very visible media campaign. We've seen the television ads all summer, and these ads are really the result of the efforts of Coloradans for Fairness. And so I want to start with a question for you, Adam.
Sure.
How did Coloradans for Fairness come about as an organization and get involved in this issue and with these advertisements?
Sure. Well, the state legislature actually passed referendum, the HB 1344, which is now titled Referendum I, and the organization behind that became Coloradans for Fairness, which is a political campaign. And we are an issue campaign focused primarily on passing Referendum I. And it started off with a bipartisan group of legislators and people who felt that this was an important issue. And they worked to get that passed to the legislature to offer it to the voters of the state of Colorado, which is a historic move. And actually, Pat was very involved with that from the beginning, so he can tell you a little bit more about that.
Okay, and I wanted to go to you, Pat, next with that very question. How did Referendum I come about in the first place, and how did it end up on the ballot? Like, why now? Why this election year?
Well, one of the reasons we asked the legislature to put this issue before voters is that we knew there would be this constitutional amendment out there to ban gay marriage, and it's now going to appear on our ballot as Amendment 43. And of course I'm voting no on it, and I'd ask other people to vote no, but we knew that Amendment 43, banning gay marriage in the Constitution, was going to come before voters. And it seemed to the group I work with like this is really asking voters the wrong question. It's just asking voters, should we exclude gay people? Should we write them out of the Constitution? It's not asking them, what do we do with gay couples? And so having some countermeasure, some counter proposal, that instead of just excluding people and saying no, but rather saying this is what we can do to provide access to basic legal rights for committed same-sex couples, that was a more meaningful question. And it's something for voters in other states across the country that have approved amendments banning gay marriage. It's a question they never got asked. All they ever had in front of them was a question about excluding gay people. They never were asked, can we fit gay people in over here? Can we change our laws in this way without creating gay marriage, but creating sort of a parallel system to provide access to basic rights for them?
Exactly. I was going to say that sort of negativity harkens back to Amendment 2, where you're writing a segment of the population out.
That's right.
Rights that are shared by everyone else.
That's right. And this is really historic, as Adam was saying. you know, every other state that's voted on this has passed these bans on gay marriage, but that's the only thing they were asked. Colorado voters will be the first in the nation, the first in history, to ever be asked to create domestic partnerships and recognition for same-sex couples through a vote of the people. There are a couple other states that have laws like this. States like Vermont that has civil unions, and Connecticut now has civil unions as well. In California, they have a domestic partnership system that's very comprehensive and very similar to Referendum I. But those were all created in their legislatures. No state has ever put this question on the ballot. We're going to be the first.
And coming from the state that produced Amendment 2, it might be seen as somewhat ironic or substantial that if that is also a state that votes for legalized domestic partnerships, I would think.
We've come a long way, perhaps.
See, we have. But we could talk very briefly a little bit about Amendment 43, which is that countermeasure which is on the ballot also, which states that the state's constitution will be altered to state that only the union of one man and one woman, you know, I've always wondered who that one man and one woman were, lucky stiffs, would constitute a marriage within the state of Colorado. And but the question comes up in my mind, isn't gay marriage already illegal in Colorado? I mean, why do they need to amend the Constitution to say the same thing?
Actually, you're exactly right, Tom. Under current state law, we already ban same-sex marriage. We already have a law in Colorado that says marriage is one man and one woman. Amendment 43 is completely unnecessary.
Right. And Adam, going back to the idea of the organization Coloradans for Fairness, you know, it's too bad. It's kind of too bad we didn't have a representative here, someone who is promoting Amendment 43, so that they could maybe explain to us why its supporters want so desperately to keep same-sex couples from experiencing equal rights, privileges, and responsibilities. And I'm quoting the text from Referendum I. Why it's so important to them that that something like domestic partnerships not come in.
Right. And I wish they were here too. I'd love to speak to those people about why they feel it's important. And you know, I do think there are people out there who they don't understand the issue. They may not even understand that gay people exist, or that gay couples exist and gay families exist. And that's what makes Referendum I even that much more important, is that it is a reality for many couples across the state of Colorado that don't have these legal protections. But these people who are proponents of 43, I think they live in another universe. They don't understand that that the reality is very different. And so they are doing what they feel is a sincere effort for this something that's alleged attack on their institution of marriage. But the reality is that the amendment is unnecessary. Referendum I does nothing to attack the institution of marriage whatsoever, and really committed couples are no threat to their commitment whatsoever. And the state really should support commitment. Commitment is commitment, and that's what the message we're trying to send to Colorado voters.
Well, commitment is responsibility, and it seems to be one
Absolutely.
of the touchstones of what the more conservative forces would like everyone to be more responsible. But coming back to what Referendum I, actually says, and as one of the writers of Referendum I, I'll get it right, Pat, I was struck reading the document that this very pro-gay piece of legislature actually cites the fact that marriage is the union of one man and one woman. Actually, within Referendum I, they said it 2 or 3 or 4 times, as if almost to say that no, this is not marriage. This is something else. Do you know why that sentiment is included in that issue as much as it is? Why it was necessary to include it?
Actually, that's a very important point about the domestic partnership system that Referendum I would create. They're not the same as marriage. And the legislature, you're right, went to great lengths to say this is not a marriage. It doesn't change our state marriage laws. What it does is it creates a way to recognize gay couples. They would take out a license from their county clerk's office, fill out an application, pay a fee, all very similar to going down for a marriage license. And yet it would give them a domestic partnership license, and it would enable them to have access to the state laws that provide benefits and protections and responsibilities to married couples. What it does is it makes all of the laws that we already have on the books today things like child support, inheritance, health care, workers' compensation. It makes all of these laws applicable to same-sex couples in the same way that they apply to married couples today. One of the interesting things about Referendum I is that it's really not creating a lot of new law. The only thing in Referendum I that's really new is this domestic partnership license. But once you get that license, we're taking existing laws and making them applicable to same-sex couples. So it doesn't rewrite family law or adoption law or child support. It doesn't rewrite the probate code and make special provisions for gay couples. All those laws stay in just as they are today. They're simply made applicable to gay couples so that they provide the same benefits, the same protections, the same set of rules that married couples play by.
Could it be that the language that this is not a marriage was put so often into Referendum I to assuage or placate or calm some of the fears of people who think that perhaps it's an attempt to get gay marriage in Colorado through the door?
That's absolutely true. And realize, Referendum I came about through a political process. Our state legislature, through a bipartisan majority of our legislature, put this on the ballot. And legislators try to stay somewhere near the middle of the road. That's part of the nature of the political system, and how you put together a majority of votes in a legislative body is by veering a course as straight down the middle of the road as you can, and saying we're not changing marriage law, we're not authorizing gay marriage, but we're solving a lot of problems that gay people have because they cannot marry. We're creating a parallel track that gives gay people access to these same benefits and protections so that they play by the same sets of rules that married couples will play by without changing marriage law. That was a very pragmatic, centrist, kind of common sense way to actually sort of sidestep some of the controversy in the gay marriage debate. If the bill before the legislature this year would have been to legalize gay marriage, it wouldn't have passed. Right. Saying that domestic partnerships are not marriage and that we're not touching marriage law, but we can solve these problems and provide access to basic legal rights and fairness for people on this parallel track called domestic partnerships. That's something that did pass the legislature with a nice, strong bipartisan majority.
Right, and I think that the fact that it is the product of a bipartisan partnership within the state. It's not simply one party or the other trying to change the law to offend a particularly huge number of people, so that it actually comes from a wide spectrum of political ideology. That this is a good idea. Is this a good idea for the state? Does it make sense for Colorado to have this? Does the state benefit
absolutely
from people entering into domestic partnerships
Sure.
rather than staying single?
This Referendum I is all about allowing committed same-sex couples to legally, in the eyes of the law, bind themselves to their commitments. And the kinds of commitments we're talking about are things like child support. Under current law today, same-sex couples can only adopt as single people. And so that you've got one person who's a legal parent for that child, and the other person who's mommy's roommate, who could walk away tomorrow and not owe child support. And how is that in the best interest of children? How is that in the best interest of taxpayers? If we allow people to make a commitment to start a family together, let's go to the adoption agency, let's go to the sperm bank, and yet we don't bind both of those people to that commitment to that child, and we don't have a legally enforceable mechanism for making both of those people pay child support if something happens to their relationship down the road and one of them wants to leave and split up. And all of a sudden, in the law, we've got a single parent with no other person that we can hold responsible for, helping pay for that kid's education or health care or what have you.
Right. Again, leveling the playing field and engendering that sense of responsibility in all citizens. I think, yeah, that sounds pretty important. And Adam, did you want to add anything?
Well, just the idea of personal responsibility is really important, and I think that resonates with a lot of Colorado voters, especially the conservative element in our state. I know a lot of people that I work with are Republicans and conservative in their political ideology, but they understand the concept of personal responsibility. They understand the concept of commitment. Mm-hmm. They understand that it's important to hold people responsible to those commitments. And so when you explain the things that we're going to happen when Referendum I passes, this creation of domestic partnerships, that we do enforce responsibility, they like that.
It's going to be difficult for them to argue against what they're always touting. It's
Absolutely.
like, don't vote for this because it's touting responsibility.
Sure.
Right.
And who can argue with that?
Exactly.
That's the thing.
Okay, one last question that I wanted to throw to you, optimistic gentlemen here, regarding the passage of Referendum I, is that I want you to, if you can, envision the post-election and Referendum I has passed or has failed. What can we look forward to? How do you visualize the quality of life for LGBT people post-election 2006? And we can start with Adam. And
sure. Well, I just think that this is an important victory for us as members of the state of Colorado, really, not just as a GLBT community, but everybody, that we've been able to, through the election process, been able to go to the voters and say, let's create fairness for all citizens. And I think that gives me a lot of hope for the future, that the fair-minded citizens of Colorado can do something so great, so historic, that whenever there's an issue that comes up, we can trust the voters to make the right decision, and we're entrusting them to make this right decision.
Okay. And Pat, your vision of
well, I'm very optimistic that Referendum I will be approved by voters. All signs look good, and as I said, this is purposely put together as a real common sense package that goes right down the middle of the road. It doesn't change our marriage laws, but it provides access to legal rights for people who today don't have them. The Referendum I provides protections that you can't get in a lawyer's office by making out wills and powers of attorneys and contracts. Referendum I provides greater economic security for children and for people in, whether you're dealing with inheritance or hospital visitation or end-of-life decisions, organ and tissue donation, burial and cremation. The list goes on and on. I think there's a lot to fight for in Referendum I that will really improve the lives of same-sex couples in Colorado and make us a model for the nation of how to not just have this scapegoating, polarizing fight about gay marriage, and instead talk about how we really protect families and protect children.
Right. Well, I'm afraid that for purposes of our discussion, we're going to have to leave it right there. But that definitely is not the end of this issue. I want to encourage all of our viewers to exercise their right to vote on these measures in November. I want to thank my two guests, Pat Stedman and Adam Crowley, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
This November, Colorado voters will have the responsibility to vote on 13 candidates for the U.S. Congress, 3 candidates for governor, and 155 candidates for the Colorado legislature. That's a lot to keep track of. To help us sort this out, here's Fawn Oates and her guests from the Stonewall Democrats and the Log Cabin Republicans.
Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, or affiliated with any other party, you may find yourself in a quandary this November. It can be difficult to ascertain how each candidate may affect your civil rights as a member of the GLBT community. Tonight we have with us representatives from both major parties to discuss what we need to know for this election. Mark Ferrandino has been involved in politics since he was a high school student in New York. He has a master's degree in public policy analysis from the University of Rochester and is currently the co-chair of the Colorado Stonewall Democrats, as well as treasurer of the Colorado Democratic Party. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you.
Frank Taggeder describes himself as a moderate Republican and a gay man. He says getting involved in the Log Cabin Republicans serves as a way to help promote fair-minded Republican candidates, push for the rights of gay Americans, and of course make a difference right here in Colorado. Glad to have you with us, Frank.
Thanks.
Excellent. Well, what do you see as the most important races this November? Mark?
Well, I think the most important race for our community is Referendum I and to oppose the ban on same-sex marriage. But when we're talking about candidates, I think the most important one is our gubernatorial candidate. We have a Democratic candidate, former district attorney from Denver, Bill Ritter, and for Lieutenant Governor, Barbara O'Brien, both who have supported Referendum I and opposed the ban on same-sex marriage.
So that is obviously going to make a big difference in Colorado who wins that election in terms of our rights.
Of course. And Bill Ritter, if he's elected, has said he would support and sign the Employment Non-Discrimination Act into law, which was passed this year by our Democratic legislature, but was vetoed by our Republican governor, Governor Owens. So by electing a Democrat to the governor's office and keeping the Democratic majority in the House and Senate, which are very important, we will be able to advance the rights of our community.
Excellent. Frank, what are the log-cabin Republicans looking at this November?
Well, we're really looking at, as far as just looking at local races, and see as far as if there are fair-minded Republicans out there that we can get behind. You know, we're going to look at each individual races across the state and find those candidates. Got basically our members out there looking, and as far as quizzing candidates and saying, okay, do these people represent us as gays and lesbians and bisexuals, and do they represent core Republican values? If not, we probably won't endorse them. But we're really looking as far as at the individual races.
And from what you were saying, it seems that we often think of Republican core values as being inherently anti-gay. What would you say?
I think that that's kind of, as far as I think that the party today, as far as what we see as far as in the national limelight, there is a lot of that evidence. And as far as even locally, as far as Colorado, I think as far as we see a lot of the religious right having a very strong presence in Colorado, and that as far as that, really as far as the moderate Republicans, I think there's going to be a swing towards more moderate Republicans getting involved and saying, okay, this is not right, because you're really trying to turn this country into a theocracy rather than a democracy. We really need to kind of take back as far as get back to what our core values are as Americans, and that the party needs to get back to its core values as far as smaller government, less taxes, fiscal responsibility. I think that we see that as far as at the national level, that's gone by the wayside, and that we really need to get back to those values. Sure,
that makes sense. What about you, Mark? What do you think are the core values of the Democratic Party?
Well, I think the Democrats stand for individual rights, as well as fighting for the working class. We've seen with this administration, the president, we've seen tax cuts for the wealthiest 1%. Democrats want to stand up and fight for the working class, who often get overlooked by the Republican Party. Individual rights, which I had mentioned, and fiscal responsibility. And so I think those are some of the key core values of the Democratic Party.
And it seems that Democrats get the same kind of stereotype, that they're automatically, inherently pro-gay, which obviously isn't the case. So,
yes, I think overall the Democratic Party is one that stands up for equal rights for the LGBT community. But there are, of course, exceptions, just as if there's exceptions in the Republican Party. There are Republican candidates who stand up for our rights, and in the Democratic Party there are candidates who oppose our rights. So we have to make sure that no matter which party a candidate is, that we look at where they stand on the issues and question them, and make sure that they know we're in their districts, we're their constituents, and that we care where they stand on these issues, and these issues are important to us.
So how would I go about it? Go ahead.
Well, I think that Mark brings up a point as far as that, you need to be, as a voter, really cognizant as far as where your candidate stands, and as far as that you really need to be in touch with your candidates from both sides of the aisle, and as far as make an informed decision, especially as far as if you're in the GLBT community. Are these people going to represent me as a gay individual, or as far as if they aren't, are they at least fair-minded, and that maybe down the road they could be persuaded as far as to really come around? Because I think that as far as that, we see that people do come around as far as when the wind shifts, and as far as that when it's politically expedient, or as far as when the time is right. And I think that the time is becoming more and more right as far as for GLBT issues to be really put to the forefront, and as far as people really saying as far as, okay, this is basic human rights. These are our civil rights, and as far as that, we are denying people their rights, and we need to really come back and say, as far as we are all Americans, we all should have the same rights.
And that doesn't seem to be a partisan issue of civil rights. I mean, is civil rights a Democratic issue? Is it a Republican issue?
Well,
absolutely.
It is.
Well, and I think of late, the Democratic Party has been the one standing up and fighting publicly for LGBT issues. You've seen the Republican Party with Marilyn Musgrave in the 4th Congressional District, and our Senator Wayne Allard, who have proposed constitutional amendments to ban gay marriage. That party, and George Bush, our president, has been pushing that as well, and they've been using wedge issues to divide communities and to make the GLBT community a second-class community, and we need to make sure the Democrats have been there fighting against that to make sure that these things do not get passed into law, both at the state and the federal level. Sure. So I think, you know, when you look at our rights and where the parties are, you know, it would be nice to have a Republican Party that isn't using this as a wedge issue, isn't, you know, having focus on the family, give them their talking points on these issues. But right now, we have a Republican Party who does that and a Democratic Party who stands up for our rights.
I think that's gonna change, but it's gonna take time. But as far as right now, as far as within this state, as far as you have such a strong religious right stronghold on the party, and as far as that it has extended to the White House, as far as their influence, and as far as, but these people do not really represent true Republican values. You know, they don't represent as far as their constituents. They aren't doing as far as, you know, doing things as far as for small businesses, and as far as, you know, you think of traditional Republicans as far as, okay, Main Street businesses, as far as, you know, maybe that's a bygone thing, but it's something as far as that I think is pure Americana, sure. And that as far as that it's really good values, and that as far as if we can get back that to the Republican Party, that everyone will benefit.
And it seems like you must get the question, you know, how can you be gay and be Republican? And it comes back to that idea that inherently Republicans are anti-gay.
Not inherently, but as far as you look at
but that's the stereotype.
It is the stereotype, and as far as we have plenty of evidence in recent elections, and as far as in elected leaders that are representing the party right now, who are staunchly anti-gay, and that those people do not represent us as Americans, right. Not just as gay Americans. They don't represent us as Americans, because all men were created equal, and all women. And let's start getting back to that.
And I think it would be nice if we could start getting back to that. I mean, we have a governor candidate on the Republican side, and the lieutenant governor, Janet Rowland, who has equated homosexuality to an alternative lifestyle just like bestiality. So, I mean, we should get away from the language of hate and more to a discussion about issues and dialogue about, you know, where we should go as a state.
Right. And it comes back to that idea of the wedge issue,
right.
That the only reason gay rights is being brought up is to destroy this election for the Democrats. Right. At least that's the idea that we're getting
right.
From the media. So, you know, we talked about...
But I think you see that as far as with things like Referendum I, it's a strong bipartisan effort as far as to get Referendum I passed. You have a lot of strong leadership in the campaign that are from the Republican Party. Sure. And I think that you're going to see, you know, more moderate Republicans really as far as pushing for things like Referendum I, and as far as, you know, as far as against banning gay marriage.
Sure. How does it look in terms of the Republican Party for this election, according to the Stonewall?
Well,
excuse me, according to the log-cabin Republicans.
You know, as far as I think this is going to be really a very interesting election nationwide and statewide. I think that there's going to be, you know, a lot of issues, and I think that we're going to see that. I think we're going to see more Democrats coming in than really than most Republicans would be comfortable with. But you know, I think that as far as it, given as far as you know, the climate in Washington, and as far as what we're seeing as far as on the national scale with really the extreme right taking hold of the party, that I think a move as far as more to the middle, and as far as if that means a few more Democrats in office. Oh boy. Okay.
That would be very good.
No,
very good. I think
I'm not happy about it, but I think the candidates.
Well, I think this year is going to be a very good year for Democrats come November 7th, and I think also for the LGBT community because of where the Democrat Party stands. We have strong candidates in every congressional race throughout the state, including the 7th, which is one of the most hotly contested races in the country. As well as Angie Piccioni in the 4th against Marilyn Musgrave. And I think they both have very good chances of taking those seats. We also have Bill Winter in the 6th, who's running against Tom Tancredo, who also uses wedge issues like immigration. We have to realize we're in this together. There's lots of Republicans using lots of wedge issues to divide our country and to win elections, and we have to stand together for diversity and for equal rights for all citizens and all people in our country. And you know, I think when it comes to the statewide races, there's a very good chance I think it's very likely we will win the governor's race. We have some strong candidates for Secretary of State, Ken Gordon, Treasurer Kerry Kennedy, and Attorney General Fern O'Brien, as well as state and House and Senate races. And I think we took the legislature back, both chambers last year, 2 years ago, for the first time in 40 years. And we saw domestic partnerships pass because of those Democratic legislators.
So it sounds like the Stonewall Democrats are very happy with the election.
Yeah, we're very happy with the election. We're working hard to get Referendum I passed, as well as working with candidates throughout the state, including Betty Boyd in Lakewood, Andy Kerr, Gwen Green, who are running re-election in the House, to work with them to get elected. And I think, you know, we have really strong candidates who are really talking about the issues that people care about. And so I think it's going to be a good year come November 7th. We're going to have a fun night.
Well, we don't have much time, but just before we leave, Frank, why don't you tell us what you would like to see voters do when they get to the voting booth, or before they get to the voting booth?
Well, get educated, and as far as find those candidates that represent your beliefs. You know, find those people that are going to represent your constituency, not vote as far as just on those wedge issues, and as far as represent just one issue candidates. Make sure that they represent you, and as far as your neighbors, and you as an individual, and just strive and get educated, and be sure and vote and get registered.
I think we can all agree on that. How about you, Mark?
Well, one of the biggest things is there's too many people in the LGBT community who don't vote, and it's really important that everyone gets out and votes. Because this is our rights, and if you're not involved, then we're not going to be able to make a difference and change things like pass Referendum I unless our community gets out there and votes. So I think it's important that they see who's going to be out there fighting for their issues. I believe it's the Democrats. I think they've proven it, and I would encourage people to find a candidate they like. Get involved in the campaign. If it's phone banking, walking for a candidate, or if it's walking for Referendum I or phone banking for Referendum I, get involved, because it's actually a lot of fun. People don't realize I've been doing it all my life, and it's a lot of fun. You meet some great people.
Well, I think we can all agree to be part of the process. Yes. It's one of the most important things for any member of our community. It doesn't just have to be the GLBT community.
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll have to leave it there for now, but we'll continue our coverage of the candidates and races on our next program. I want to thank my two guests, Mark Ferrandino, and Mark Taggart for joining us tonight. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to make your voice heard.
Well, while the upcoming elections are important, politics isn't the only thing in the news. Here's Rick Miller to get you caught up.
A lawsuit seeking to reinstate domestic partner benefits provided by the city of Colorado Springs has ended after the second of two plaintiff couples dropped out of the case. Kaylin Lagama has decided not to pursue the suit on behalf of her partner, former city dispatcher Barbara Henson, who died in May. The suit was filed in 2003 after the city council revoked domestic partner benefits that were approved the year before. California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger has vetoed a bill that would have barred discrimination based on sexual orientation in public schools. Schwarzenegger said the state education code already barred such discrimination. The bill's sponsor, Out Senator Sheila Quell, said the governor chose to listen to a small, shrill group of right-wing extremists instead of a fair-minded majority of Californians who support this reasonable measure. Opponents of a proposed constitutional amendment to ban same-sex marriage in Virginia have gained support over the past 6 weeks, according to a new statewide poll published in Richmond. Support for the proposed change in the state constitution dropped from 56% in late July to 54% in last week's telephone survey of 625 registered voters likely to participate in the November 7th election. Opposition to the measure, meanwhile, increased from 38% to 40%, Mason-Dixon Polling and Research Incorporated found. 6% remained undecided, a figure unchanged from the previous survey. Attorneys who lost an appeal of Nebraska's broad ban on any recognition of same-sex relationships say they are still considering whether to appeal the case. A panel on the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned a lower court ruling that struck down the state's constitutional amendment, ruling that the issue is a matter of state rights and not a violation of the U.S. Constitution. Last month, the full court declined to reconsider the ruling, which leaves 90 days to decide whether to appeal to the Supreme Court. Despite a pledge by Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper to revisit the law granting marriage rights to gay and lesbian couples, a majority in Parliament opposed such a move, and the law is unlikely to be repealed. Harper announced earlier this summer that he would schedule a fall vote asking members of Parliament if they wish to reopen the issue. Since then, the New Democrats and Bloc Québécois parties announced they would vote against it. A bill to allow same-sex marriages in South Africa may need to be amended after the country's legal advisory board raised questions over whether it meets the requirements of last year's High Court ruling ordering the government to extend marriage rights to gays and lesbians. The state law advisor also cited concerns over a provision that would give civil marriage officials the ability to refuse to authenticate same-sex marriages if they object to them on moral grounds. White House political strategist Karl Rove, who is credited with using the gay marriage issue to mobilize conservative voters in the 2004 election, had a close relationship with his gay former stepfather, according to a new book. In The Architect, Karl Rove and Master Plan for Absolute Power, co-authors Wayne Slater and James Moore write that Rove kept in contact with Louis Rove after he left the family in 1969, later visiting his stepfather and his retired gay friends in Palm Springs, California. Louis Rove died in 2004. Some Iowa parents at Valley High School in West Des Moines are upset over the school's decision to let students perform the Laramie Project. It's a play based on the events surrounding the hate crime murder of University of Wyoming student Matthew Shepard. The play discusses homosexuality, uses profanity, and contains violence. School officials say it teaches tolerance and acceptance of others. They hope the play will encourage families to discuss diversity, hate crimes, and whether such behavior is acceptable. About 90 students were signed up to audition for the play this week. Some parents opposed to the play say they plan to express their concerns to the school board. And finally tonight, we want to let you know what's coming up in the next edition of Metro Mode magazine. For all you tree huggers out there, as well as lovers of Mother Earth, there's an article that tells you all about being a Wiccan. Or if that's not your idea of spirituality, there's an interview with a clairvoyant who's going to give the scoop on the other side. For you music fans, there's an interview with the Pet Shop Boys, and they'll be talking about their new CD and their upcoming concert in Denver. If you like underwear and the bodies that wear it, you won't want to miss the fashion mode section that will be featuring some of the models from previous issues showing off the best in fashionable underthings. Take a trip through Ireland and spend some time checking out more Election 2006 information. All that and much more in the October issue of Metro Mode magazine. It hits the shelves on October 6th at 266 locations along the Front Range. Until next time, this is Rick Miller for Colorado Outspoken.
For 19 years, AIDS Walk Colorado has been raising much-needed funds to help thousands of Coloradoans affected by HIV and AIDS. This year's AIDS Walk was attended by its usual crowd, but this time, those that wanted a little more strenuous action could do the first ever AIDS run. Here's a look.
This year I'm raising money for children with AIDS and women with breast cancer. I'm at about $700. My goal is $1,000. So I'm going to be collecting money as we walk. I'm going to walk the 3 miles, and then I had fundraisers this year, so I raised like $130 at a fundraiser. So in raising $700 by yourself it's pretty difficult. I mean, I've been very busy, but I've been very happy. If I don't raise $1,000, I know the $700 will go to a very good cause.
This is actually the first year, it's the inaugural run, so it's the first year that we have an official run. I mean, there have been people who have run before, but this year it's timed, it's a qualifying race for other future races. I don't know, I just thought it'd be more fun to run it than walk it. I might have been wrong. No, it was more fun.
I have an uncle that passed away in '89, and actually his quilt is here under the display. And we work at the Hotel Monaco, and our company, Kimpton, is really big into the AIDS community. They've been around since the early '80s, so they've always been active in the AIDS community, and so we donate to the Colorado AIDS Project. And so we had my uncle's quilt at the hotel for the past week on display, so that was kind of neat. And so it's always just been a special thing to my whole family. It's incredible to know that all these people support it for whatever reason it is, whether they know somebody with it or died of it or whatnot. Somebody will know, eventually they'll know somebody who's had the epidemic. I mean, it happens to everybody. It doesn't matter if you're gay, straight, black or white. It doesn't matter.
10 years ago, the dreams of a Neverman to help people living with HIV/AIDS came to life in a facility and community dedicated to making their lives a little better. The Chesney-Kleinjohn apartments celebrated their 10th year anniversary with a party for their residents, sponsors, and friends.
Chesney-Kleinjohn was a idea that Keith Chesney had back in 1994, 95, and when he passed away, his estate was the initial seed money that funded the Chesney-Kleinjohn housing project, which is now was built and dedicated in May of 1996. The mission of Chesney-Kleinjohn is to provide affordable housing to people with HIV/AIDS and provide a safe and decent living environment. Currently we have 20 residents. We have 17 apartments. Chesney-Kleinjohn has a agreement with Colorado AIDS Project, where the Colorado AIDS Project maintains a waiting list for people who are living with HIV and individuals who would like to live in the project contact the Colorado AIDS Project and get on this waiting list.
Colorado AIDS Project, we are very much in support of Chesney-Kleinjohn. We refer all of the clients who live here, so clients get on a waiting list that we hold at CAP, and many of them are on there for years at a time. It's usually the average wait's around 3 or 4 years just to get into the building, and then we work with them and tell them about Chesney-Kleinjohn and bring them over here, and they meet the residents and apply for the apartments and hopefully live here happily. We've had a bunch of clients who've lived here over the years. I started working at CAP 10 years ago, and right about a month after Chesney-Kleinjohn opened. And I was a case manager at that time and had 3 clients who lived in the building. And I remember all of them distinctly and remember being in their apartments with them as they lived here, and actually all 3 died here. But Chesney-Kleinjohn played such a big role in their lives because for them, for those 3 particular people I'm thinking of, it was the first place they'd lived that was stable. It was the first place they'd lived where they could kind of take a deep breath, where they had a community around them. That was a really nice building and not a friend's couch and not a kind of a, just a crappy apartment over on a busy street. So it was really a home for the very first time for them. And I think since then, I no longer case manage clients and I have a little less contact with them, but I hear stories of folks from people who have the same perspective. This Chesney-Kleinjohn has become their home, and I think that's the reason why people stay here so long and why the waiting list is so long and why very few people move out, because it's a beautiful place and it's a stable place for the very first time.
Living at Chesney-Kleinjohn has just made it more financially easier for me to afford living on my own.
What I think is most important is the family atmosphere that we have here. All of us being HIV/AIDS, and that we all know each other in one way or another. Some of us are closer than others, but it all feels like a family, and it feels very close, and we all get together on occasion for holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, things like that. We all know each other by name. It's very friendly and it's very warm, and it's been great. It's been great. It feels like home. It feels like home to me.
I've been living here since February of 2000, and before I came here, my life was kind of unorganized. I spent most of my income on rent and food, and since I moved here, I've really stabled out. I live in a real nice housing, and all of my friends here are my friends. We're all fighting something that's, well, I don't want to call it deadly, but it's not too much fun having the virus. But living here, it's just given me my independence, and I have a little bit of discretionary income at the end of the month now. And it's just nice to be in a place that I can call home.
When you come into a building like this that's beautiful and affordable and just kind of filled with hope, I think it can't help but have a positive impact on the residents that live here.
One of the fun events of the summer, and one focused entirely on women, is the LILT Women's Entertainment Festival. This year, the festival featured more than 15 female entertainers and groups providing music, comedy, and lots of fun. Even our very own Fawn Oates got into the act. We can never find out why it's called LILT, but it sure looks like fun.
LILT Festival is all about female-fronted bands, musicians, artists. Women are not just opening acts. That's our philosophy.
It's about us.
We like to think it is. No, we came on board in 2001, the first year of the LILT Festival, and we've been with them ever since. LILT Festival brings out all types of musicians, from acoustic, like single girl with a guitar, typical folk girl rock, to punk bands, to, you know, one girl playing an upright bass with a drum track. It's everything. It brings out comedians and fun and entertainment.
My name is Leah. No, I'm not Velma Scooby-Doo. Although I am what Velma would look like if she just embraced her sexuality.
Bob and Ethel, for crying out loud. I mean,
out loud. Did you see Bob and Ethel?
They were fantastic.
They're like a good bra. Good
Troopers.
support. Yeah.
2002 was our first LILT, and actually I was just called up by Marty, who owns Tracks, and he said, hey, I want you to put a music festival together. And I had some connections, and that's what I did, and it's just kind of grown over the years.
I think that the music business and just music is so proliferated with men and men-fronted talent that it's nice to have different showcases that actually like are fronted by females.
Yeah, we started doing Pride Jams at Pride Fest, and when we had the bar, and just kind of continued on growing into a bigger women's music festival. And they asked me to come on board because they need somebody to boss them around, and you know, that's my job.
What has inspired you to keep this going?
I've been hanging out in the music scene in Denver a long time. I go to a lot of live shows, and generally women are not the headliners. If you really start looking in westward, you'll see there's very few women that are headliners. They're opening acts, and that was actually our little tagline, that women are not just opening acts. So we thought we'd just give a day for female artists, female musicians, and women-owned businesses.
I was approached by the folks putting it on and asked me if I'd sponsored the LILT Festival, and I thought it was a perfect opportunity because I just opened a foundation for women and children to help them move forward through their pain and get on with life.
So is this a fundraiser for that organization? How's that?
It is a fundraiser for the organization. We'll have many, many, many more to do. I agreed to sponsor it because guess what? Women love women, and that's what my foundation's about.
We try to seek out vendors and sponsors. We try to, you know, make them a real fair deal, and then we put them on all the advertising and let them come down and sell their goods here. And we're planning on continuing on with LILT. We're going to start doing more LILT events. We're going to do a little mini winter LILT festival this year, and a bigger and better LILT festival next summer.
We really wish that Denver would come out in all its glory and support this, because really it's a fantastic opportunity to hear stuff you don't hear every day.
It's live and it's ladies, and it's important because it's, you know, it's just that opportunity to showcase all of that stuff, you know, even if it's just for one day.
elections, anniversaries, festivals. It's a lot to keep track of. So much goes on in our community that all of us need some help in keeping it all straight. That's why we have the bulletin board, and that's coming up right now. In tonight's movie, a teacher has a secret, and one of his students finds out. I wonder what it is. Here's a look at the Half Nelson.
This song is called Half Nelson, for those times when you're feeling kind of stuck.
This machine is keeping me down. Now, what is that? What keeps us from being free? Miss Dre.
Prisons.
Absolutely.
The school.
The school. Exactly. The whole education system.
Aren't you the machine then?
Oh, no, you didn't. A little elbow here and there never killed anybody. Not in my house.
You don't gotta worry about me. Oh, look at you, Miss 12. 13, I'm 13 now. Oh, so you grown, huh?
What's new?
I don't know.
If you need something, let me know, all right? The sun goes up, and then it comes down. But every time that happens, what do you get? You get a new day. So what you need, teach? I cleaned up for the most part. I do it now to get by, but I can handle it.
Coach, can you help me up?
I'm fine.
How are you?
Same old, same old. Well, I feel good today. Anyone else feel good? You ever think about working? Easy, right? Show beat flipping burgers. I know that I'm the last person that should be saying this.
Don't have to worry about me.
We are sinners, but we can strive to be good.
What do you call cheese? It's nachos. Nacho cheese. Is there something going on that I should know about?
Some people change. Some people actually change.
Yeah, not me. I'm one man. What do I do? I need you to stay away from Dre.
Excuse me? Mr. Model A1 citizen.
I don't know.
He your teacher, Dre.
He's my friend.
Baseheads don't have friends.
We're always changing. And there are some changes you can't control, but there are others you can. Second chances are rare, man. You want to take better advantage of them.
If you'd like to go see this movie, why not give us a call on the movie line, 303-861-0829. We'll give a pair of free tickets to 10 randomly selected callers. Just leave us your name, number, and we'll get back to you and tell you how to pick it up. Well, that's all we have time for this month on Colorado Outspoken. We hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget, we'll be back on Sunday, October 29th at 10 p.m. right here on KBDI Channel 12. We're always also available online at coloradooutspoken.org, where you can watch this show and previous ones in their entirety. And you can now download Colorado Outspoken on your iPod from iTunes. I'm Stephen Montez. Good night.